Apple just released a brand new MacBook, and it costs only $599. At first glance, that sounds almost unbelievable. A modern MacBook at nearly half the price of the MacBook Air. But here's the real question. If Apple already sells the MacBook Air, then why would they release an even cheaper MacBook? And more importantly, which one should you actually buy? Because while these two laptops might look similar on the outside, they're designed for very different types of users. And once you start looking closer, some of the differences are a lot bigger than you'd expect. So in this video, we're breaking down everything that actually matters when choosing between them. Performance, display, design, ports, battery life, and the real reason Apple created the MacBook Neo in the first place. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which MacBook is the smarter buy for you, and which one might end up being a mistake. Alright, let's start with the new kid on the block, the MacBook Neo. The headline here is the price, $599. That instantly makes it the most affordable MacBook Apple has released in years, and that alone makes it a pretty big deal. For a long time, the biggest barrier to entering the Apple laptop ecosystem was simply the price. If you've been waiting for Apple to release a laptop that doesn't feel like a major financial commitment, this is the one that finally makes that possible. But the important question isn't just the price. Who is this laptop actually built for? Apple is clearly targeting casual users, students, and people who need a reliable everyday laptop. If your daily routine looks like web browsing, watching Netflix, writing documents, answering emails, attending Zoom calls, or managing schoolwork, the Neo fits right into that kind of workflow. Under the hood, the Neo runs Apple's A18 Pro chip, which comes from the same chip family that powers the latest iPhones. And that might sound surprising for a laptop, but don't underestimate it. For everyday tasks, this chip is extremely efficient and surprisingly fast. Opening apps, switching between browser tabs, writing documents, streaming videos in 4K, everything feels smooth and responsive. In fact, for the kind of tasks most people use their laptop for, you're probably not going to notice any lag at all. But, and this is important, the Neo definitely has limits. If you're thinking about editing large video projects, running demanding creative software, compiling code, or working with complex professional applications, this is where the Neo starts to struggle. The GPU performance simply isn't built for those heavier workloads. So a good way to think about the Neo is this. It's like a fast, reliable commuter car. It gets you where you need to go every day without any problems. It's efficient, practical, and affordable. But it's not designed to be a high-performance machine. And that brings us to the MacBook Air, because this is where things start to get really interesting. The MacBook Air has always been Apple's answer to the question, what laptop should most people buy? And the newest model continues that tradition. But there is one major difference compared to the Neo, the price. The MacBook Air now starts at $1,099, which is about $500 more than the Neo. So what exactly are you getting for that extra money? Quite a lot, actually. The Air runs Apple's M5 chip, and the difference between the M series chips and the A series chips is significant. The M5 offers noticeably stronger CPU performance and a much more capable GPU. In simple terms, the Air isn't just slightly faster, it belongs to an entirely different class of laptop. With the Air, tasks like editing videos in Final Cut Pro, producing music in Logic Pro, working with large Photoshop files, running developer tools, or managing multiple demanding apps at the same time are all completely manageable. You can keep dozens of browser tabs open, run productivity apps in the background, and still have the system feel responsive. That's why the Air is built for creators, professionals, and people who push their laptops much harder every day. Now, performance and price are only part of the story. Once you start comparing these two laptops side by side, some of the smaller details start to reveal why the Air costs more. Both laptops feature roughly 13-inch liquid Retina displays with around 500 nits of brightness. On paper, that sounds almost identical, but in person, the experience is slightly different. The Air has thinner bezels, which makes the screen feel larger and more modern. The overall design is also thinner and more refined, which gives it a noticeably more premium look when the two machines are sitting next to each other. The Neo, on the other hand, has slightly rounder corners and a smaller footprint, which actually makes it a bit easier to throw into a backpack or travel bag. So neither display is bad at all, but the Air definitely feels a little more polished. And speaking of things that feel different between these two laptops, the next difference might actually be a deal breaker for some people. The Neo does not include a backlit keyboard. That means if you're typing in a dim room on a late-night flight or in a darker cafe, you'll be relying on ambient light to see the keys. The Neo also uses a traditional mechanical click trackpad, while the Air uses Apple's haptic trackpad system, which simulates clicks using vibration and pressure sensors. Apple's haptic trackpads are widely considered some of the best in the laptop industry. The Neo's version works fine, but it's definitely a step down in terms of refinement. There's also an interesting detail when it comes to Touch ID. The base $599 Neo model doesn't include fingerprint unlocking. Touch ID only appears on the $699 configuration with 512 gigabytes of storage. The MacBook Air includes Touch ID across all models. Now, if you care about how your laptop looks, and for a lot of people that actually matters, this is one area where the Neo does something fun. The Neo comes in indigo, citrus, and blush, which are bold and expressive colors that really stand out. The Air sticks with midnight and starlight, which feel more classic and professional. So if you want something that feels a bit more playful or unique, the Neo definitely wins in the color department. Now let's talk about one of the specifications that has a huge impact on long-term performance: memory. The MacBook Air starts with 16 gigabytes of unified memory and can be configured up to 32 gigabytes. That extra memory makes a massive difference when you're multitasking, running demanding apps, or trying to keep performance smooth over several years of use. The Neo is limited to 8 gigabytes of RAM with no upgrade option. For basic tasks, that's completely fine. But if you tend to keep a lot of browser tabs open, run multiple applications simultaneously, or plan to keep your laptop for many years, that 8 gigabyte limit can become a real bottleneck. And the story continues when we look at battery life. The MacBook Air offers up to 18 hours of battery life thanks to its 53.8 watt-hour battery, and it charges using Apple's MagSafe connector, which attaches magnetically. That means if someone trips over your charging cable, the cable disconnects instead of pulling the laptop off the table. The Neo delivers around 16 hours of battery life with its 36.5 watt-hour battery, which is still very respectable. But it charges exclusively through USB-C, which leads to another limitation: ports. The MacBook Air includes 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports capable of 40 gigabits per second speeds, plus MagSafe for charging. Because charging happens through MagSafe, both Thunderbolt ports remain free for accessories like external drives, monitors, or docking stations. The Neo also has 2 USB-C ports, but they operate at very different speeds. One port runs at 10 gigabits per second, while the other runs at USB 2 speeds, which is dramatically slower by modern standards. And since one of those ports is typically used for charging, you're often left with just one usable port for everything else. If you ever need to connect multiple accessories, that limitation becomes noticeable pretty quickly. Before we reach the final verdict, there's one last area worth mentioning: the camera and audio system. The MacBook Air includes a 12-megapixel center stage camera, which automatically keeps you centered during video calls, along with a 4-speaker system that produces richer and fuller sound. The Neo uses a 1080p camera and dual speakers. Both systems work perfectly fine for casual use, but if you spend a lot of time on video calls or watching content on your laptop, the Air definitely offers the better experience. So now that we've looked at everything: performance, design, memory, battery, ports, and features, the decision becomes much clearer. Buy the MacBook Neo if you're a student, a casual user, or someone who simply needs a reliable laptop for everyday tasks like browsing, streaming, writing, and video calls. If you want an affordable travel laptop or a secondary machine that handles the basics well without costing over $600, the Neo is genuinely impressive for its price. But buy the MacBook Air if you're someone who pushes your laptop harder. If you edit videos, work with creative software, manage demanding workloads, or want a machine that will stay powerful and relevant for the next 5 years, the Air is absolutely the better investment. Yes, the difference between $599 and $1,099 is significant. But when you look at the extra performance, memory, features, and long-term flexibility the Air provides, that additional cost starts to make a lot more sense. And in many ways, these two laptops aren't really competing with each other. They're solving two completely different problems. The Neo makes owning a MacBook more accessible than it has been in years. The Air remains the MacBook that most people will rely on as their primary computer every single day. So now I'm curious. If you were choosing between them, would you go with the $599 Neo or spend the extra money for the MacBook Air? Let me know what you'd pick. And if this breakdown helped you understand the differences, make sure to subscribe. Because every week we dive deep into the tech that actually matters.